Hello there. This is Class A Carrie. Today, I am going to deal with an issue that has come up from moving a lot of my appliances in and out of my RV. Here's my RV door. A few weeks back, I had to take off the door in order to move out the sofa couch that I had taken out, as you've seen in an earlier video. And when I removed the door, apparently, you can't really tell from here because I can't even open my door now, but I'll explain. Inside on the hinges, there's about 6 or so hinges going all the way up and down the door. So apparently the screws that were used, they weren't very big screws, the screws that were used to keep the door attached to the hinges to the wall, just on the inside of there, the screws are no longer reusable because there's some metal plates behind the doors that the screws go into, and when I loosened them up the first time, they apparently fell all the way down somewhere inside the wall. So I was able to open the door, not very well, because obviously when I tried to put the screws back in, the screws weren't turning into anything. They weren't fastening into anything inside the door frame there. And so the door would hang off kind of loosely. It would barely shut, and it continued to get worse. And so I stopped using the door. And so now today, I'm going to attempt to try to fix that because I would like use of my door again. So here we go. Shown in the last video, I removed the ice maker and the ice making cabinet to free up all this space. So to get to where I can open up the wall to the door there, I want to remove the window frame here, the wooden one. We'll leave the window in for now. And then that way I just have a tiny bit more room to access that little wall space between the door and the window. Then I'll open up into it, tear down the wall, and see if we can find those metal plates and try to screw in the hinges properly. So to remove the wooden frame that goes around the windows and holds up valances and curtains and such, you can see inside we have an L bracket. We can take off the top screw there. Over on this one, because this motorhome has had severe water damage issues, that one just kind of pulled out on its own. So we will have that one, and then one's located up on the upper section that I will take off. I wanted to show you a little something on the window frame that goes above the window about how easy it is to remove the parts. Okay, this part of the valance, yeah, it's just on by screws, so that easily came off. This decorative part that made up the middle there, yeah, that just came off. It was only attached with screws. And then the same thing for these parts of the valance. They just pull right off because they're only attached with staples. Pretty much like the rest of the motorhome. As you can see, here is the basic frame that went around the window. It is now off. It was just held into place by staples, so it was not difficult to take off. The wooden header that held up the blinds came right off. And up there, I probably shouldn't have pulled it off, but it came off very easy. You can see where some of the wood still remained. I do plan on keeping the blind, but as far as the infrastructure around it, that's all going to go, so it doesn't matter in the end. If you were wanting to save, to reuse some of the architecture around the RV, you would have to be a lot more careful. I removed the coat hook that was right there in the middle. 2 Phillips screws easily came out. I am now going to take the oscillating tool with this cutting blade, and I'm going to go ahead and cut into the wall so we can open it up a little bit and see what we're working with. So with the oscillating tool, I cut a bunch of rectangles all up along about half the wall next to the door. I'll now take the crowbar and hammer and remove those rectangles and then dig further into the door frame. Before I was going to take out the rectangles along the door frame, the thought occurred to me that maybe since there's a lot of water damage here, I better open up this area so it can dry before I get back to rehabbing the walls. And just wanted you to take a look at all the water damage in here. The light fixture just almost fell off the wall, and I haven't got all the way up to the top yet, but yeah, it right now you can't of course smell it on the video, but it smells very, very mildewy, moldy. So yeah, I'm gonna open all this up before I get to my door and let it dry out. I have finished taking out the wall up until the door frame, and as you can tell, we've run into one of the steel supports. So the door is somehow attached to either the steel support or something in the steel support. So now, in order to solve my door problem, I'm going to have to take off the door again, plus dig into the wall as much as I can on this side. As for now, I'm going to finish opening up this wall so that the water damaged interior can dry out, so we can fix that later. Here's what the door by the door frame looks like when I have it open. Those screws no longer fit inside those holes. You can see here, they're just barely hanging on or falling out. The ones at the bottom are the ones pretty much supporting the door, but they're also going to fall out too as they're loose. So this is what I need to fix. This is the original screw that goes into the door. It's a size 8, and I believe it's a 1/2 inch. This is the equivalent, or the best equivalent, I was able to find at my local hardware store. As you can see, when I put it in, it just spins. So here's another screw I bought at my local hardware store. It's the same number 8, or about the same, but longer. I'll try that. The longer screw also spins in place. No good. So the similar size screw did not work. A similar screw that was longer did not work. Lastly, I also bought at the hardware store the next size up, a number 10. Same threading, but it does have a different head. Instead of the typical Phillips head, this has a standard and one that you can use a wrench or socket on. Now, I do not know if this is going to work at all, or even if it does fasten the door, I don't know if this head will end up getting in the way. I got nothing to lose, so I will find out. I started the screw by hand. I have it aimed correctly in the hole. I always find it easier. A standard versus using a socket I'll always use the socket. And the size is 5/16. And to tighten is righty-tighty. We'll flip that to the right. Let's see if it fits. I'm getting a little bit of resistance, which is better than the originals. Okay, and I think it's all the way in. It still turns, even though there's a little bit of resistance, so I think that is the best it's going to go in. It's going in better than the original screws. What I'll do is I'll put these in for all of them, and then see if the door will shut. I finished installing all the replacement screws all the way up. On a few of them, I went up a size from the new 10s that I put in to a size 12, and they still fit in pretty good, because sometimes, depending on the hole, the 10s just also spun in place. And now when I shut the door, very nice. Yay, my door works again.